Laya Healthcare, looking after you always. Proud sponsors of Real Health with Karl Henry.
Hello, welcome to Real Health with me, Karl Henry, in association with Laya Healthcare. Well, folks, we're just over a week and a little bit to Christmas Day, and I thought, well, we could do a show on fitness tips, getting healthy, or how to work on your mental health. But then, you know what? I decided to have a little bit of crack and we'll enjoy ourselves in the festive run-up to the big day. And who better to interview than two tip lads who've taken over the Irish podcast charts by storm with TV shows, books, merchandise, and whatever else you're having. They're becoming something of an Irish institution. Johnny McMahon and Johnny O'Brien, aka the two Johnnies. Welcome to Real Health. Well, lads, how's it going?
Unbelievable, Karl. We love that. We love that intro.
Nobody's called me Johnny O'Brien since I was in school, I'd say. Thanks for that.
So people are going to be surprised having you guys on, but this came from a request I had on my Instagram Q&A session. Somebody really, they wanted you on after an episode you guys did based around kind of, body image. And I want to start with that and ask you, why did you do an ep on body image? Where did that come from?
Going to have to let you kick this one off, John.
Yeah, I guess from our perspective, like, body image was something that I've probably struggled with a good bit, even from being a young lad. As a teenager and a child, I suppose I was kind of a chubby enough kid, and I think I've had hang-ups about that all my life. And I just thought, I remember chatting to one of my friends about it, and he's quite similar as well. And we just mentioned it one day. We were in the gym together, and we were both looking in the mirror, and I was like, I bet no one feels like I do when I look in the mirror, because I don't look at like my face or this or that. I look at like that midsection, like in around my stomach, my back. I'm like, oh my God. Whereas like other people won't see that, but I seen it. And I said it to him, and he was like, I'm the exact same. He was like, when I put on a t-shirt, he was like, I'm stretching it, I'm pulling and dragging over. And I was like, I wonder how many more people are like that. So we were like, look, we've got the platform. We thought it was interesting to talk about, because particularly for men, a lot of people don't talk about body image. It's a thing that is kind of associated with girls and, on Instagram and that kind of stuff. And there is a pressure to look good. And that pressure is equally as much for men as well. So that's why we said we talk about it. And the feedback we got was huge. So many men in similar situations who've never mentioned it and just been like, oh my God, you summed me up to a T when I spoke about it. And I think it was interesting in that regard to get people's feedback. But it is something, there is a pressure on men to look good just as much as there is on women. And particularly for me and Johnny, we've got telly, we've got loads of other stuff. And there is a pressure to look good as well as be healthy.
And were you surprised by the reaction that you got to it? Was that something that surprised you?
Yeah, like no word of a lie. I'd say there was easily 1,000 messages on it right across guys and ladies. And like for me, I guess I've never really struggled with weight. I was kind of skinny all my life. I couldn't put it on even if I tried. So it was a weird one. But I was delighted to hear Johnny be so honest and open. And I think that was the main thing people said, was that this is something apparently people don't talk about enough. I mean,
yeah, I got so many messages from fellas, particularly like who were like, I'm the exact same and I've never spoken about it. And I think it's almost unhealthy not to talk. It's like acting, like you want to just talk about something you talk about. But I mean, this wasn't something that we sat down with our friends about. Like I'd make jokes about it. I'd be like, yeah, I'd make a joke about being chubby, or I'd make a joke about like, not looking that good in it, togged out or whatever. And I guess it was something that I was struggling with for a long time and never really, took the time to be like, what's the story with that? I thought maybe everybody was like that.
And is it true that you were trying to make the minor panel and you were told to lose 2 stone or you weren't going to make the panel?
Yeah, that was like one of the very first trainings I did. So it was like in November of whatever, 08, and the championship wasn't until, I suppose, first round of championship was April 09. And that's, the guts of 7 or 8 months. And I remember at the first training, a fella came up and was like, listen, you'll make this panel, but you have to lose 2 stone. And it was like, it wasn't like, look, you're not fast enough or you don't have the fitness, you need to improve on that. It was like, oh, you need to lose 2 stone. It was almost, regardless of your level of fitness or your level of skill, it was like, you lose 2 stone, you're all right.
But this number is arbitrary. He just pulled 2 stone out of his head. Like, there was no science.
100%. Yeah, he just pulled the 2 stone out of his head, and there was no roadmap of, okay, you need to lose a bit of weight. Here's how we're going to do it. There you go. There's a diet sheet, there's exercises. It was just like, lose it. Don't care how you lose it, just lose it. And
it's scandalous to think, to look back on it now, to be honest, like, not to be putting the boot into tip GA, but like, it is like, you can't just tell somebody, because you don't know, you're talking to a guy who's like 16, 17, and you tell him to lose 2 stone, and he doesn't have a clue how to do it. Like, God knows what he's going to try.
Yeah, I'd like to think that, since that was what, 10 years ago. Like, I'd like to think things have changed in 10 years. I hope so.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, and it is, as Johnny said, it's a tender age. You have your hang-ups particularly, and they're particularly bad at that age. You're worked up about everything. So now I lost the 2 stone, but it was by unconventional means.
And you can't just leave that there now. Come on, how did you do it?
Oh, sure, I tried everything. I stopped eating lunch in school. I starved myself. I put on a black bag. I went running. I trained in a black bag. All that usual crazy antics that, you think loses weight. But it was very unhealthy, like, what I was doing, even, like, to the fact that, like, I would stop eating lunch in school and starve myself from, like, in the morning until I got home that evening. And, yeah, it's very unhealthy. But I've had a very unhealthy relationship with food almost all my life. It's kind of under control at the moment because coronavirus has helped in that regard, because I'm in a training regime and I'm not constantly on the road. But I would have always rewarded myself with, like, food. So if I played a game or done a big show, I'd be like, do you know what? I'll go home now, I'll have a kebab, I'll treat myself. And then it was like, I was treating myself. We were going so well, I was treating myself every night of the week. You know what I mean? And it's unhealthy. And but I think that's the way it's been from growing up, was like, oh, good man, there's an ice cream. Good man, there's a bag of marshmallows. And it is unhealthy, and you take that with you, I think.
And do you find for both of you now, in terms of, you're famous, like, you're on RTE, you're on The Den. Myself, my wife watched you on The Den a couple of weeks ago. And, in terms of posters, in terms of profiling, that brings pressure with it potentially to stay in shape or to stay healthy.
Yeah. Well, for me, before I was doing this, my family were hurley makers. So I just lived in my work clothes, and I had long hair and a big beard. So maybe not quite so much body image, but definitely image, that it's so strange to me now. Like, I wash my hair every day and put in a bit of gel and, like, take out the razor and try to wear reasonably clean clothes. Like, this is all very strange to me, because I lived 7 o'clock Monday morning until Saturday evening in a pair of Snickers and, like, just covered in dust. So to now see it, definitely the first time you see yourself back on tape, as Johnny says, you're looking at everyone, like, and the comment section can be vicious. Like, it just takes one person to say, like, something that you didn't realize you were self-conscious about. Like, it's cold and you're wearing a t-shirt and you can see your nipples in it, and then someone says it and you're like, oh, maybe I'll just cut them off. Like, it can drive you mad.
Yeah, 100%. And you shouldn't, but you do, and that's compare yourself to others all the time.
Yeah, there's no point.
Like, we're growing up in such a tough environment now. Like, even, like, we're probably not too bad. It's the next generation. I see I have a sister of 14. She's nearly 15, and she's comparing herself to Maura Higgins off Love Island, or, you know what I mean? Like, social influencers. And it's a dangerous path, but even as grown men, we probably do compare ourselves, like, because we're on TV and whatever, we feel we have to look a certain way, and you have to look well. And of course, when you look back on camera, you want to look your best, because when you do look your best, you obviously feel your best. And then you perform better, be it a television show or be it, just general work or whatever. But yeah, there is a pressure.
And do you worry for, like, a lot of your audience will be that younger kind of generations, 16, 17, 18, and the pressure that they're under now. So compare yourself when you were 17, you got, when you were told to lose that weight. Now being 17 is a far tougher proposition, because you've got Love Island, you've got social media, you've got all the Instagram influencers with their filters and their filtered angles and all that kind of stuff. So it's difficult being a teenager now, and growing up is really difficult in terms of pressure that social media presents.
100%. Like, I would have been much happier. I'm glad I grew up when I did. You know what I mean? Because I think nowadays the obstacles they face is crazy. And, like, we can look at it as adults and we can be like, I love Love Island. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? I'll sit down and I'll binge that, no problem. But I'm cute enough and I've been around the block enough to know, right, well, I'm nearly 30 now. And odds are I'm not going to look like one of those 20-year-olds with a six-pack. But I'm okay to be like, I've made peace with that. I'm fine with that. Whereas, like, a kid of 16, 17, even younger, are at that such impressionable age that they can't comprehend, like, I should look like that. And it's like, we shouldn't, because everyone's different. We all look a certain way.
But everyone's definition of happiness and success is different too. Like, the people like that on Instagram or Love Island or whatever, like, as they say, it's everyone's highlight reel. So that's somebody on Instagram or on reality TV or whatever living their best life. But that doesn't matter to me. So that's not what I value in life. Like, so you look at somebody who's in great shape, but how are their relationships? Maybe, you know, how's their actual health, and are they happy? You know, are they doing well? Like, there's plenty of people who are very successful in other ways, and you don't have to. That's all I would say to young people is, if you're looking at somebody who's on TV with the top off, that's probably their priority in life, is to look good. You know, they're not good at all the things you're good at. You know, and, you know, a lot of people on TV taking steroids. Let's be real about it. We've seen the films. So that's all I'd say. Like, Instagram is a tough world. It definitely, like when we were 15, like people were wearing scandalous clothes.
Yeah.
And now, like, once you kind of hit 15, 16, boys and girls start dressing like adults.
Yeah.
And start posting pics like adults. You're all on nights out, but like you're just drinking a glass of Lucozade or whatever. But you're almost imitating older people. So you've nearly been forced to grow up younger. And as I'd say,
has your idea of happiness and success changed since the two Johnnies has taken off?
Yeah, like, I guess for me, like, it's like I always had a normal job that I never really liked. I've had lots of jobs. I've had around 10 different jobs, and I don't know if I've ever really loved any of them. I haven't, you know, until obviously the two Johnnies, and I love what we do now. And I suppose, like, happiness back then would have been like, oh, nights out and the whole lot. And then during the two Johnnies, it was like nights out, living the life, the whole lot. And then after a while, you're like, actually, this is great for a while, but I'm kind of, now happiness is just sitting down in the quiet. You know what I mean? Watching television or something. Like, maybe I'm just getting older and getting out of partying. But yeah, happiness. Do you know what? Happiness is just being able to wake up every day and do something you like. And I'll settle for that. I don't mind anything else, because I used to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, go into a butcher counter, and my hands were freezing, and I was on €9 an hour. And listen, I'm a lot happier now, I'll put it that way.
You're warm, you're in your studio, you know, life is a lot better. And how about yourself in terms of, you know, making the hurleys and stuff, to jumping in? Has success, or your idea of success and happiness, changed?
Oh yeah, but when we first started, we weren't quite sure what we were at. So it's always like, they say that about self-employed people, you're always living in the short-term future, you know, that I'll just do that thing next week now and it'll be class. And then a mate of mine who's a successful record producer always says to me that with bands, there's no big break. There's about 10,000 small breaks. And so for us too, it's not about like, we do that thing and we get to be on TV. And it's like, what, are you going to get more famous or more money? There's no one thing. If we did something great now, and if you were paying us 50 grand to be on the podcast, it's not like tomorrow morning we wake up and we're like, oh, that's it. Now we've more money. Now we're happy.
Yeah.
It's like, you have to enjoy the process. So from writing songs to writing sketches to writing comedy for the podcast to interviewing people, we try to enjoy it all. So there's no real work. I wouldn't really consider we do work. We had to do a bit of bookkeeping yesterday.
Yeah, that was torturous. That was torturous.
So that's probably the only thing we do
that we don't enjoy doing.
That we don't enjoy, because everything, like if you're doing a sketch and you have to make a costume, that wouldn't be our sweet spot. That wouldn't what we'd be great at. But sure, fuck it, like we'll knock a bit of crack out of it.
Yeah.
And so happiness is look, it's the whole thing. We just learn to really enjoy the journey.
Yeah. And
if people stopped watching our stuff and if we stopped making money, I think we would still enjoy doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And where did the idea for the show come from? So give us the background in terms of when the idea started, how you created it and grew it to what it is today.
The podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I suppose the two Johnnies started 4 years ago, and that was sketches and the whole lot, when sketches were big on YouTube and Facebook, and that's kind of died off. But I think we were doing a lot of like Snapchat, Instagram stuff, stories, like, and it was 15-second bursts. Whereas like, I think we have so much to say, 15 seconds wasn't doing us justice. And we were like, look, if it's like anything, we'll try anything if we think we can make a success of it, and it'll be a success or it won't. Thankfully, most things we've touched has been pretty good, like touch wood, that like it'll stay like that. But the podcast came about, we were like, let's try it. But when we try something, we don't be like, right, let's try a podcast. We won't buy any of the gear though, because, you know, it's expensive and we don't want to take the plunge. But we're in a different mindset where it's like, let's get all the gear, and it has to be a success. because we spent all our money on the gear, so it has to be a success. So we've always been like jump in with 2 feet. Now we would do our research, of course, and then we jump into it and we give it our all, and that's where the podcast idea came from. It was like we talk about general stuff. We can talk about what's on in the news. We can talk about nostalgia. We have character stuff, which we've brought with us over the years, and it's a combination of everything that we like and everything that we think we do well is mashed together and is the podcast.
Yes, Max was a podcast fan before I was. I wasn't listening to that many podcasts when we started ours. Johnny was more, you were listening to some of the English ones anyway. And that Johnny's type of humor is probably more storytelling. So when he said it straight away, I thought, yeah, that'll suit him straight away. And the podcast for me has been amazing because of all the topics we get to cover. And the rabbit holes we go down, like the shit we've learned, man. We did a podcast about the history of pubs in Ireland, and I had a stack of like the licensing laws of Ireland that I ended up reading. I don't know if I really needed to. I don't think he read it, but I just got into it. And then we did a podcast on like online gaming and esports, and we talked to people, and they're doing a degree in it in Waterford. They're starting up, and you learn so much mad stuff that. Weirdest things, like
we're going to be those 9 lads down the pub if the pubs ever open back up, who are like, did you hear the one about that's going to
I swear to God, I was watching the news the other day, and this guy got arrested in where was it, in Uganda, and I was like, we did a story on him 2 years ago. Bobby Wine was running for president.
And do you have any apps that stand out, or any favorite apps that you've done? That's a horrible question to ask anyone who does a podcast, but I always like to ask it because I'm intrigued.
We interviewed a lady from Cork who has a very successful OnlyFans page.
Yeah.
And that got a lot of attention. We had to interview her over Zoom. It was during the lockdown, but really interesting.
Yeah, it's
just putting the questions to her that everybody wants to ask,
Yeah, and her take on her
she
body
and
how women are thought of and stuff is very interesting. And it was interesting for us as well that we went into that interview almost thinking one thing, thinking like, oh, that wouldn't be our kettle of fish now. I wouldn't like my daughter doing that, or I wouldn't like my sister doing that. And then we came out of it going, she's kind of won us over. She had one.
You have to fill all our listeners in on what an OnlyFans page actually is.
So it's content that's not suitable for Instagram.
Yeah.
And subscription based. You have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And it can be used for anything. There's personal trainers on it, etc. But it is mostly used for, I guess you'd call it porn. People taking their clothes off.
Yeah. And
there was one lady in Cork who does it, and she's really successful at it, making a lot of money at it, posting videos and photos of herself, Playboy stuff. And we were asking
she's
her,
happy.
Yeah,
but we
there you go. She's found her happiness.
Yeah, but she's telling us about how it's affected her life, and how she deals with criticism and people coming up to her, and she has a family. So it was a very interesting discussion. Yeah.
And how do you take it from there then to TV? How did the jump happen? How did you find TV, be in front of the cameras then, in terms of over in the States doing the show?
Yeah,
I'd say that the podcast definitely stood to us more than like sketches and stuff. Yeah. If you're looking at people that are doing well on the internet and they say, oh, how come Mick there? How come he hasn't got a TV show? But I think the podcast stands to you.
Yeah, 100%. We've got a production team on the podcast, and our producer Mara and stuff like that. And so we're used to having meetings and working as part of a team. And I think that really stands to you when you do a TV show, because you've got to get that team right. I mean, we were in America for 3.5 weeks. It would have been almost 5 weeks by the time we'd finished. Obviously, coronavirus cut the Two Johnnies Do America short. But I mean, the podcast stood to us there, and we'd done a lot of like reporting and stuff like that and hosting. So we'd hosted loads of live events. Be it, how we got our start was doing a local Strictly Come Dancing, and if you can be funny in front of 400 people from your town and win them over, then standing in front of a camera, it's really not that bad. If you're talking to Bridie in the front row and like I knew on Monday morning I had to serve her mince, you know what I mean? So being on TV was grand, but it was about getting the right team and the right project. Like we'd been there, we'd done the dance, as they say, a few times on different ideas for TV, and
we'd pitched different things.
Yeah. We pitched different things, and we felt this one worked for us. And plus, it was a camera crew following us around America. It really, honestly, it wasn't that hard. We just said, you keep rolling and we'll keep being us
Yeah.
and mash it all together. And that's what we got. Obviously, the Christmas special that's going out Christmas Eve is totally different. Then that's shiny floor, razzmatazz, us in suits, proper presenters. That's a little bit more tricky, but we wrote all the scripts. We always write our own scripts. So that's dead handy for us, because when you write it, it goes into your brain somewhere. And then when you have to regurgitate it back to the camera, it'll come back out, and it's in our words. So it's enjoyable. But it's like Anton. We didn't go in and be like, right, we're best TV presenters, give us the gig. It's like, look, we're good enough, and we learn what we don't know. We're willing to learn. It's like Anton, though. You just have to work at it. Like
we did a couple of bits. We did a kind of cameo on a thing for the player, and. But I guess if you want to see us interviewing people, you can just watch any of our podcasts.
Yeah, where we interview everyone. Yeah,
on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then we were guests on lots of TV shows, and so they could probably get used to seeing us on camera. And they say we always rated well, and we done loads. We did loads of interviews, so I think
stood to us.
Yeah, you'll have to ask RTE why they gave us the show.
Well, you're good at what you do. You get the Christmas Eve specials coming out, which is fantastic.
2020. The Christmas Eve special is going to be, that's the biggest and best thing we've ever done by a mile.
Yeah, we can't believe it.
That's ridiculous.
We'll be crying watching that, I promise.
Yeah, we've seen some of the back already, and it's going to live on. People will be scarred for life after seeing this.
And that's going to be out on RT1, RT2.
RT2 Christmas Eve 10:15. Yeah,
chalk it down.
Amazing.
Don't be Sky Plus now, Ryan.
Watch it live.
Watch it live. We need the ratings. Come on.
2021. What's it going to bring? What's the plan for 2021?
A vaccine.
Yeah.
All I want for Christmas, isn't it?
It's like if you'd asked before the coronavirus, we'd have probably had different plans. But I think now is like definitely probably more TV and more podcasts. The podcast is our mothership. That's our main baby. And we have our podcast on a Monday, and then we have one on Patreon on a Thursday. And that model has just changed the game for us in terms of subscription and stuff like that. It's really giving us something else to work towards, and it's enjoyable. It amazes us that every week we can sit down and have a chat that we would have had in the car on microphones, and people love it. It's like I can't believe it. It's still pinch me stuff, but definitely more podcasts. We've got another couple of TV shows that are ready to go, so they'll be coming out in 21. And I mean, live shows were a massive part of ours.
Just mad to get back live.
Yeah, I want to get back.
I don't know. We've never been to anyone else's live podcast, but I bet you it's not like ours. Like if you go to our live podcast, you want to be taking the next day off work. Like it'll be mayhem, and for a finish, you're up dancing on the table. So
yeah,
it's important for us to get back out, and our fans are very honest,
very demanding.
They like to meet us after a live podcast and be like, "You two fuckers, come here," and they'll tell you straight what they do and don't like. So we'd love to get back out doing live, and as we get more established doing TV, we can hopefully push the boat out a bit more and do stuff that's maybe like, going to America was great, but I'm excited for like season 2. And as we get better at it,
and the more stuff we can get away with,
the more we can push the boat out.
It's like anything. If you rock up to RT and you're like, here's the ideas, and they're like, look, take it easy now. It's your first time on television. But if you rate and then you go back and they're like, I told you we were good.
Yeah.
Now let us do it.
You have a leg to stand on, quite literally.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Final question. How does Christmas look? How's Christmas Day going to look?
Christmas Day is going to be turning the phone off, sitting on the couch, overeating on calories. I'd say I'll treble my daily calorie intake. And it's, do you know what? It's going to be enjoyable because we haven't seen much of our families. Even obviously, listen, everybody's in the same boat with coronavirus. But I mean, even last year, we didn't see much of our families because we were pretty busy with work and traveling away. So for us, I mean, Christmas Day is going to be nice. It's going to be spent with the family. We'll probably rewatch our show 10 times the next day, and we'll chill out and turn off the phone and just relax. That's it for me. It's about Christmas is going to be nice because we've got a little block of time off. And it's going to be nice to spend it with the people who put up with us at our worst and at our best.
and kick back and relax. Folks, that is it for another episode of Real Health with me, Karl Henry, in association with Laya Healthcare. A really big thanks to the two Johnnies for joining me on today's show. You can watch them on the Christmas Eve special on RTE2 and listen to their podcast. You'll see them all over the podcast charts. They're absolutely epic. As always, we really hope you enjoyed today's show. You know where we are, realhealthindependent.ie, at Karl Henry PT on Twitter and on Instagram. And we'll see you next week for more Real Health.
Laya Healthcare, looking after you always. Proud sponsors of Real Health with Karl Henry.